When organizations choose to switch to Office 365, they must decide how they're going to move the mailboxes from their on-premise Exchange servers into Exchange Online. Exchange Online being the Office 365 mailbox management solution. One of the more popular ways to do this is to use the built-in Move Mailbox feature that comes out of the box with Microsoft Exchange. One of the reasons it's so popular is because, first of all, it works. And second of all, if you've already paid for Exchange, this is part of the solution that you've already acquired or purchased. Another reason is that mailboxes can not only be moved from on-premise Exchange to the cloud, but they can also be moved back. So you can actually move a mailbox to the cloud, to Exchange Online, but then you could also turn around and move an Exchange Online mailbox back on-premise. So you have some flexibility there. The built-in Exchange migration service uses the Exchange mailbox replication service to move the mailbox from on-premise to online. And one of the big benefits here is that if you have auto discover set up for your Outlook clients, all of the redirection of Outlook for your users is all done automatically. So the next time they open Outlook, their mailbox data will be pulled from their new Office 365/Exchange Online mailbox. That way you don't have to worry about getting all of the clients updated. So you get redirection for your clients automatically. That's a huge reason people choose this, in addition to just being free. Now, for smaller organizations, using this migration process built into Exchange, or this Move Mailbox process, might be a great way to get their mailboxes up to Office 365. However, enterprises typically find this a little more cumbersome because as the number of mailboxes increase, the lack of visibility and control over how you can move these mailboxes really becomes apparent. And this is where Office 365 Migrator comes in. So here I'm looking at my on-premise Exchange server. You see I have quite a few users here. And then I'll just jump over to my Exchange Online. This is actually through the admin console. I could have done it also because I'm set up in hybrid by clicking the Office 365 link in my main console. And you'll see that in the recipients section under migration, I've actually established what's known as a migration endpoint, or an endpoint for the migration, which is my on-premise. And I've already started to create a couple of sets of mailboxes. So I actually moved 45 mailboxes by hand. That was very simple. I just created a text file with the 45 people in it I wanted to move, imported it. Yeah, enough said. But then I may want to split other groups into separate groupings. I may also want to do scheduling and things like that. And then I also want to give my management some visibility over the whole migration process. So one of the great things about the way the replication service works is that it synchronizes the content of the mailboxes, and then you choose to complete the migration by doing what's called completing the batch. And what that does, it does one last synchronization, then it does all the redirection on premise and in the cloud to make sure the mail is now delivered to the mailbox in the cloud where the user's client is then redirected as well. So over here on my mailbox, I'll leave this just set. These are the people that I still need to move. So I could go out and do a bunch of text files, try to create these, and then go out and try to figure out PowerShell. And actually, it's doable as long as you have groups of users that are not sensitive to the move, and you don't violate any of the rules that are embedded in that. One of the other big challenges is that there's no visibility over that process. So then you got to constantly run PowerShell scripts and things like that to sort of see what's going on. So what we've done with Office 365 Migrator is created a user interface that eliminates these control and visibility problems with the Move Mailbox solution. So right off the bat, we give you a dashboard showing you the last 5, what we call batches or sets of mailboxes that you're going to move to the cloud. And then we color code them. So green simply means that these mailboxes have already been moved. And so these users that were in Columbus Engineering, of which we had 45 different mailboxes, have been moved, and these guys are all working in the cloud now. Blue means that I have a set of 200 mailboxes here for Columbus operations, but these mailboxes are synchronized. So the content is synchronized both on-premise and in the cloud mailbox. And all I need to do is just basically complete that batch. It'll do one final sync, and then it'll do the redirection to switch all the people to be pointing off to the cloud mailbox rather than having their clients and the OWA pointing on premise. And what was interesting is that even if I had done some of these things in the native console, so let me jump over to the native console. Here are those two batches that I would have set up, and I see them clearly here. I see here's one that is synchronized but not yet completed, and I could actually do a completion here if I wanted to. And here's the one that was completed already. In Office 365 Migrator, you'll see we have those two batches, but then we have two virtual batches. And so what we've done is we've created a process that allows us to let you do planning ahead of time. So these two batches don't yet exist in Exchange. They simply have been scheduled, or they've been created and can be scheduled at a later date. And so how do these things get created, I guess, is the next question. So let's come over here to this query we set up for finding mailboxes. Now, the first challenge that we wanted to address was the need to create text files. It just seemed like a little bit more work, and it wasn't very granular. So you ended up doing a lot of PowerShell work, a lot of scripts, things like that. And then if you had, for example, to move people by location, or by department, or maybe a combination of those things, you would have to continue to refine your scripts, create lots of text files, and then of course people are hired during that process, so suddenly you have to go out and rerun the scripts. So you're going to have thousands of these queries building text files, and then the text files you import, and you're going to miss somebody. And then worst problem or a bad problem that sort of exists there is if there's an issue with one of the mailboxes, you may have to delete the batch, recreate the batch, which means you have to then import and export those text files, so it's kind of ugly. So what we've done is we've created a set of filters against your on-premise mailboxes. So I give you a very clear view of your on-premise mailboxes. I call these the source mailboxes. And then we give you the ability to do complex searches here. So for example, if I knew that the title was a specific job title, for example, or if I know that custom attribute 15 is flagged, I can actually enter the value of the Active Directory attribute, a colon, and then the value I'm looking for, right? So that would work as a filter. I could also do, for example, city, which is L, New York, something like that. This is a little bit more difficult, and what we found is that most folks have asked us for department and office. Those seem to be the two that are most popular. So while I can do these long strings to create my queries, it's easier if I just switch to advanced view and I simply say, well, I want, let's see if we have anybody in the Columbus office any longer. No, nobody in Columbus. How about Seattle? Yeah, so I'm looking for Seattle, and I only want sales users, which is a pretty simple query if you look here. I already actually had a lot of these guys already displayed. So this allows me to do a very accurate and clean search. And now the next thing is to create the batch file that is going to allow me to actually do the move itself. So when I go to do that, it's just simply one click. So I've identified the users that I want to migrate together. I'm going to go ahead and select those users. I could have selected individually. And we do select all, so you get all the different pages. So I have a couple hundred users here. So this is going to be Seattle Sales. I'm going to just copy that for later so I can avoid typing. I'm going to add them to a batch job. I can select an existing virtual job and increment that with these additional users, or I can create a brand new one. So in this case, I'm going to actually say it's the Seattle Sales. And it is going to be actually all of my Seattle sales folks because there's less than 1,000 or 2,000 users, so pretty simple batch. And I want to actually have this scheduled. And I do my migrations on Fridays, so I'm going to schedule this for the 27th. And I'm going to have it start synchronization at 1 a.m. So now I have the job name which will eventually become the batch name when the schedule triggers. And I have the schedule in which I'm going to begin the synchronization. Now, just simply beginning the synchronization does not cut the users over. So this is a pretty safe process because it's only going to create mailboxes and populate those mailboxes on the target Office 365 environment. And in fact, we don't need licenses for these users yet because we can create the mailboxes without license and then license them later. So I'm going to go ahead and add this migration job. This takes just a minute. We do call in the background the Exchange service to make sure that the names don't conflict and those types of things. But you notice all of the users are gone. And that's simply because we remove them from the on-premise list because they're now in a batch. That way I can keep working my list until I have everybody removed. So let's see if I have anybody else in sales. Nope, I don't have anybody in sales. But as soon as I deliver or remove department, you'll see I do have people in New York Finance. See if I have anybody in accounting. Nope. Let's see if I have anybody in San Francisco. New York. Yeah, they're all New York users. It looks like I pretty much have left. So once that batch has been, or that job has been created, there's no batch yet because the batch is, it's all virtual. I can actually come out and in our solution see both my batches that are in Exchange. There's those first two, the completed and the synchronized. And then I have 3 virtual jobs or batch jobs that have yet to be actually created in Exchange. So this shows me which batches are going to run. If I want to know what my schedule is, you'll see I'm going to do San Francisco on the 20th, and then I'm going to do Seattle sales on the 27th. And if I come back to my dashboard, it'll refresh here in a moment. I'll see that schedule. So I see that I have my first 200 Columbus operations users are synced. I can now cut those over. I have 200 in New York that are scheduled. Actually, no, I haven't scheduled this one yet. Office in San Francisco will be moved, and then Seattle sales. So I can mix and match how I do these to get my users completed. Now, if I went ahead and scheduled my next one, I would actually see that all of my users for New York, let's just make sure I have 5 pages left. Oh, I have some here in Atlanta engineering. Okay, so I have a little bit more to do, but certainly I could do Office Atlanta, select those folks, and this is Atlanta engineering. That's pretty simple. And then the last one I think is going to be New York. And I just want to make sure that they're finance. So I'll just abbreviate it, FIN. All right, so I have all my FIN finance users. I'll go ahead and add them. New York finance. I know that they're good to go. And then I'll just clear my filters here. And I'll see, oh, I just have 1 mailbox left. So all of my on-premise mailboxes are now scheduled for move. I have a list of the jobs that I've created here. These would be both the batches that are in Exchange. So if I've been working in Exchange, I can add this feature later and get my progress. Or I can come in and look at the virtual batches and sort of see what the status is. If I want, for example, to start or kick off one of these batches to start syncing. So for example, I know Atlanta engineering is ready to go. We've checked the mailboxes. We've done all our prep, making sure that we're going to be under the size limits, all that sort of thing that I have to do to make sure my mailboxes are ready. I can just simply come in here and start the batch. And when the screen refreshes, it'll actually have changed the status here. So I'll see it's syncing. It hasn't synced yet because it's just beginning the process. But what we're doing now is actually waiting for Exchange replication service to tell us what the batch is. Now, if I jump over to the Exchange console here, the Exchange Online console, and I'm just going to do a quick refresh here. And it may take a few moments for this to show up, but I will eventually have another batch now because it's no longer a virtual batch. It's actually a real batch now. And there it is. There's Atlanta engineering. It's synchronizing. And this process is going to take whatever Exchange takes. And this is not an immediate process because it's taking all of the data in the mailboxes and actually replicating that data over to Office 365 so that the mailboxes are in sync. Once I have a completed batch and I want to have it finalize those and switch the users, all I really need to do is come in, pick the one that is ready, which in this case Columbus Operations is synced. I would just want to complete it, and I would just click complete batch, and then it would say completing, and then once it's done all of the final replication, it does one more pass to make sure everything's there. Then it cuts over each mailbox, does all the redirection, everything you need to do, plus it does redirection for auto discover, so your clients are updated as well. Everything's moved. So once all that occurs and I get users cut over, I am able to sit back and just keep working down the list. So I would go back and create my next batch or schedule my next batch, etc. Sometimes we have situations where there may be bad mailboxes, corrupt mailboxes, things that the replication service can't deal with. Or maybe I had an attachment that was too large or a mailbox that was over the size limit and that threw an error. I may need, in some cases, to return the users back to the mailbox on-premise view so that I can fix those, then create a new batch and have it resubmitted. So in those cases, I have my move progress, which shows me the existing batches. For both virtual batches and for actual batches, I can delete them. So, for example, Seattle sales is scheduled, but it's not actually been submitted to Exchange yet. So I can just delete it. And as soon as I do that, I'll let my screen refresh, so it'll come up and it'll say gone. And now I just have to wait for a couple of moments and refresh here. And my Seattle mailboxes will then come back here in a moment. I think Exchange replication service is still busy, so it's a little bit slower than probably would have seen earlier. Okay, so here they are. It just took a moment. So I could then correct the issues and then go back and add the ability to create another virtual batch, reschedule this, etc. And all the time, any of the batches that are scheduled or completed will be shown here. We show the last 5. So my completed version is done. It's now showing me the ones that are ready to sync, and my scheduled or my virtual batches and the date they were created or the date they're scheduled to go. If I want to check any of the mailbox statuses, if I get some sort of error during the migration, we have a constant visibility over the move process. So here I can see that this person in Columbus Operations is synced. That means these people in Columbus Operations are ready to be switched by closing the batch. And as I move down the list, you'll see that I have each mailbox, and I can go and look to see what the problem is with a particular mailbox. If there is an error, Exchange will tell me what the problem is. Maybe that it couldn't read the mailbox was deleted after the batch was created, so there is no mailbox. Those things happen when you're managing a live environment. The message will show up here as an error. And then finally, if I need to just quickly see who I have online, I can come in and see what mailboxes are actually created online. Now, a couple of additional things about this. We have a preparation section and a remove exchange section. These are both external links. Preparation takes you to the Office 365 Migrator website and gives you some things you should think about for preparing for the migration. For example, running reports to find obsolete accounts. You don't want to migrate mailboxes that are not going to be used again. Looking for attachments that are too large or mailboxes that are over the size limit that is offered by Exchange Online or Office 365. And then finally, once you've moved your last mailbox from on-premise to cloud, you may think about removing your last on-premise Exchange server as well. If you're just using Active Directory and Office 365, you can actually have a hybrid continue, and you don't really need Exchange in that case. So you simply go over the process we describe here to remove Exchange. And then finally, if I want my management to see the dashboard so that they can view the progress of the migration, I can come down to security and give Office 365 read-only access, give the migration panel console read access to my manager by simply providing a group name here. What you'll see is that by default, full access to the console itself is to the built-in administrators of the system that has installed the product. And then I have the ability to specify a group of read-only. So this could be my domain / managers or migration review board or whatever you're going to call it. Just simply provide it, and then provide them the URL of the console, and they'll be able to watch the dashboard to see what the progress is. And then finally, when you first install the product, the only thing you need to do is really make sure you have the Exchange Online global admin account so we can create mailboxes, etc. You need an account that has the ability to read the mailboxes on premise. This is a pretty low-level account, but we just simply suggest you use an organizational management role holder to make it simpler. And then finally, the domain name that should be used as the primary domain in Office 365 as the mailboxes are placed over there. And remember, it's taking care of all the routing and all those types of things automatically, so you don't really have to worry about that. All right. So in the next set of videos that we do for this, we'll talk about some of the common issues that you can run into and how to resolve them. And we will also talk about initial configuration and the parameters and requirements that are needed to make sure that Office 365 Migrator adds in and works properly on top of Exchange Replication Service.